Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and today we are wrapping up Strategic Bomber Lane. Could you call that, Greg? Strategic Bomber? He's like, yeah, I don't really care. Strategic Bomber Lane. He is my meticulous assistant, whatever that means. But today he's also thought of everything. We are wrapping up with the B-21 Raider, and Greg, the Las Vegas hat. I got it. The Raiders. Thank you. Thank you very much, Greg. So that's as far as I go with that. Although Greg has all the off-camera Elvises that I have done, I am going to toss this off-camera to the Greg. Ooh, nice catch there, Mr. Greg. So today we're going to be talking about the Raider, which is under development. Now the Raider, this is, by the way, the Raider is so new that there is no model like this out yet that we've been able to get a hold of, but what we did do is Greg will throw up a plan view for you. I am going to use the B-2 as the kind of facsimile aircraft, although the B-21 is actually a little smaller than the B-2, and we're going to talk about what happened between the airplanes. It is under development. It came out of the long-range strike bomber proposal, and that proposal was in about 2014. It went out for RFP, if you can think about that. Now think about the time, and we've talked about some of these other programs, how long they went out for RFP to the point where we know that they have one of the B-21s built, how long that was. This thing is moving very, very quickly. I'm going to tell you why I think that's happening. The Air Force is saying they want 80 to 100 aircraft. Now think about this, B-2, 20 airplanes, and I'm going to explain why we end up with 20, and they're thinking about 80 to 100 at $550 million a copy. Now, you say, well, that's a lot of money, but that's about half, roughly half of what the B-2 cost. Now, what happened here, the services, I think, and we go back to the B-2 episode, but the B-2 was so far ahead of its time that with the skin and the surface on the skin, all the technology that went into the airplane, I think what's happened with that airplane is that it is literally almost you're fielding a prototype airplane, but you're fielding a prototype airplane in combat operationally, which is a nightmare. And on top of that, you only built 20 of the airplanes. There is no economy of scale with the airplane at all. And this aircraft was originally let out under the experimental program under Jimmy Carter back in B-1. So think about how long and how old the original technology and the thought process that went into that. Stealth was just starting. They've learned a lot with stealth since then. The other thing that's changed is the integrated computing power of the United States military, which is that all of the sensor platforms now are forming that integrated battlefield. And so if you have aircraft that, let's say, have 1990s generation computers in it, can you imagine having an Apple IIe or an old Apple computer, Macintosh, from 1990 in your house? You're stuck unless you do major upgrades with these aircraft, which are incredibly expensive. You're stuck with whatever computing power and whatever transmission power is in the overall platform. And so I think the rush to get to the B-21 is because of the fact that this airframe is so exotic and so limited. Completely juxtaposition there, Greg. Did you like that, how I did that? Totally opposing forces, but not, it's cutting edge, but it's so cutting edge that it actually defeats itself because there's nowhere to go with this platform on tooling and everything else. So I think they took out a clean sheet of paper with the B-21, and that's what's happening. Now, can they field 100 aircraft? The Air Force is saying long range, they'd like to have 175 to 200 of these. Now think about that. We're talking about a $550 million price tag. I will venture a guess that we'll be lucky if we'll see 100 of these aircraft built. Now, it incorporates a flying wing design, the fly-by-wire technology, the ailerons, all of the lift components of the airplane we know we've solved the flying wing problem. Back when Jack Northrop was working on them with the very early aircraft, they didn't have fly-by-wire technology. But since we've gotten to the point that we're dealing with composite components and flight computers and all that, the flight envelope of the airplane is not the question. The question is speed, payload, fuel consumption, and survivability. Those are the questions at this point with the airplane, because the shape of the airplane is settled technology at this point. So the B-21 specs are still classified or estimates, but let's assume that we're dealing with an aircraft that's a flight envelope of somewhere between just below subsonic to just above subsonic. So 600 to 1,000 miles per hour. You're looking at a range of about 10,000 miles with a comparable payload to the B-2. That would be ideal if they can do that. The aircraft is spec'd to be smaller than the B-2, so it's going to be a little bit more compact. But hopefully the other thing they solve is the skin issues. The B-2 has to be kept in a special environment, in a special environment hangar. They don't go out, and they don't go anywhere else. And so remember we talked about fielding a prototype airplane. You're fielding a prototype operationally. Let's hope that they solve the coding issues. The aircraft behind me, the Stealth, the F-117 Stealth had some coding issues early on, but they solved those and they came up with these actually cut patches that they could put on the airplane. So hopefully with this next generation flying wing bomber, we'll have solved those technical issues. Now, if you are involved in this program, you are my salute today. And you are my salute today because you are really a gearhead. Making this stuff work, rocket scientist, whatever you want to call it, this is as cutting edge as it gets. They don't make a more cutting edge piece of technology than the B-21. Let's hope that we can keep it at that $550 million price tag and we can actually get 100 airplanes out of that. If we could get where they want to be, which is 200 airplanes, that would be amazing. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the 200 airplane fleet might mean as well. But if you are involved in the B-21 or you're involved in flight tests, she hasn't flown that I'm aware of at this recording. The airplane is slated to fly very soon. We probably will not know about it flying until the Air Force decides they're darn well ready to tell us. But if you're involved in any of the flight tests on this, we want to salute you. And today, we want to do it with Bazooka. Greg, this is one thing when I walked in and I picked this up and Greg just went, it's going to be bad. So I'm going to brace myself here, gird myself for Bazooka bubblegum flavored soda. This is 170 calories, so calorie bands. Good bubblegum flavored soda. There's no Rocket Fizz, so this is, yeah, these guys, they're notorious with me. This is some bad stuff generally. But it is cold. The bottle's recyclable, has recyclable on it, so it's fairly new. It's not something that's been on the shelf for 500 years. There was a poof there, so it's sealed properly. Nothing on the cap. All right. Bazooka to you, Greg. Whoa. You know what? Wow. The finish on that. Greg is like, yeah, I wish there was a reverse camera where you could see his face because he is just smiling from ear to ear. Oh, it is part of the Pure Cane Sugar Mafia. Yeah, he's going, yeah, second sip. See, I was trying to get out of it, Greg. No. He's not letting me go. All right, second. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Why would anyone bottle anything like that? I mean, there is marketing and, consumption of materials. Someone had to have tasted that before they bottled it, but, well, to Rocket Fizz, you have lived down to my expectations again, as you always have. So, let's talk about if they get to the upper end of 175 aircraft to 200 aircraft. There are rumors, and I say they're rumors, and you can get after me in the comment section if you want, but there are rumors that the B-21 will have an offensive air capability. So if you think about the interlock and what they're talking about, the interlock with the F-35, and you're talking about B-21s, then now with you have a sensor interlock, if the airplane actually had an offensive capability, you might build that many airplanes. You don't need, and you look at 45 or 50 B-1s and 45 or 50 B-52s that they're deploying now, and let's say 20, why would you build 200 airplanes? The only reason you'd build 200 airplanes is because it had an offensive capability. You don't need that much bomb load. So there may be some reason why you're going to see them deploy that many airplanes. The rest of the engineering in it that we can tell is very similar to the B-2. In fact, you could almost argue that the B-2 is a testbed airplane. Bearing engines, that flying wing concept, fly-by-wire, ram material, again, all the usual suspects in stealth. Now, the other interesting thing about it is that this aircraft will have a common engine between the F-35 and the B-21. So that's one thing. Remember, we talked about building a one-off. You're not going to be building a one-off aircraft because you can start cross-platforming components, which gives you better economy in production. So let's hope that that happens. Now, the other thing that is interesting with this, and we talk about where we may be going with this, is the Air Force has said they want to build a new, what they're called, penetrating counter-air fighter that would go along with this airplane. And that would be a long-range fighter. There have been rumors, and we've seen, patches of shadows up at Tonopah and stuff like that, that the Air Force has already flown a 6th generation fighter. That could be the companion aircraft to this. I'm not saying that it exists conclusively because I don't know that, but if I was a betting man, there's enough indicators out there that there may be a prototype fighter that goes with this. So, and if we're critics now, and if you start looking at the weapon stacking in the inventory of the Air Force, think about this for a second. You have the F-35, which can drop what this airplane could, which is a JDAM, 2,000-pound JDAM, and all of the standoff weapons. So the F-35 replaced the F-117, so think about that. Then you get the B-21 that replaces the B-2, and then you have the this long-range penetrating fighter that augments and that is a true air superiority aircraft. So now what you have is you have ground attack, you have a new conventional bomber, and you have a high-end fighter. That would make sense in the Air Force's architecture, that that's where they're going, and that's why we're seeing all these retirements of some of these older platforms. It makes a whole bunch of sense. Tactically, and Greg can maybe find some graphics on all this. I'm sure there's some graphics, forward-looking Air Force graphics out there about this, but I kind of think that's the stacking we're seeing, is to get this kind of integrated platform together, and they've also got themselves in a box. And Greg is saying, why do they have themselves in a box? They have all these legacy airplanes, the B-52, the B-1B, some of these other airplanes, and to some extent, the F-22. These are all older technology airplanes. And the world doesn't stand still. The Russians have certainly shown us that they're kind of a hollow force in technology by the fighting in Ukraine, but the Chinese are massively upgrading their fleet, and I could see why the Air Force is seeing a lot of pressure to get all these new aircraft online as fast as possible. The other component with this, Greg, is the hypersonic missile. And now you start to see this entire cross-platform of a next generation of aircraft and equipment they're going to deploy. They have a big challenge in that they've got to get the crews changed, they've got to get all the technology done, they got to retire all this stuff. They probably have about 10 to 15 years to do it, which is when you see them talking about retiring a lot of these older platforms. but they're going to run out of steam after that. So, although I did see a cartoon where the USS Enterprise spaceship was being retired, and next to it a B-52 was flying through space. So who knows when they'll retire the B-52. Now, if you want to get a gift for a loved one in your family, and you know how I love puzzles. This is a great puzzle. This is a puzzle of the evolution of aircraft. There's all kinds of cool airplanes on here, all the way up to the modern ones, and so you can get this. This is a great starter kids puzzle. So get out there and click on that link, and Jason will happily send you one of these, and you will be able to start a loved one off with the puzzle of aviation. So do that. Now, we cannot do everything that we do in front of us. And by the way, the Stealth goes in, as of this video, Stealth goes into paint here in less than a month, which is exciting. So the Stealth will return to her dark black color, be all black, the black jet. So that's going to happen. So click on that link, donate a few shekels. We can always use that. Now, if you've come across us on Facebook or one of our other platforms like YouTube, give us a like. We cannot do this without your response and your interaction, and we really appreciate it. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Lieutenant Colonel Cole, in the future, when the President calls the United States Air Force and puts us into the fight, what is the name of the bomber that will carry on for all of us?
Good morning. I am very humbled to be here representing General Doolittle and the Raiders at the naming of the B-21 Raider, and wish they were here. We are deeply honored. Thank you.